Chapter 7, 19 West 4th Street, New York. Rachel was in an office suite in New York University, splitting a piece of German chocolate cake from Amy's bread with her sweet mate, Sylvia Wong Swartz, when her mother called. Hey, Mum, how's Panama? Rachel answered in Mandarin. Her mother was on a true family reunion cruise through the Panama Canal. I don't know. I haven't left the ship, Carrie Chu replied. You guys have been cruising for 4 days now and you haven't docked once? No, the ship has docked, but we've never gotten off. No one wants to leave that boat. No one wants to leave the boat. Auntie June and Auntie Flora wants to get their money's worth, so they just sit and stuff their mouths at the all-you-can-eat buffet all day long. And of course, Uncle Ray and Uncle Walt aren't speaking to each other again, so they're both at the casino, but at opposite ends. Walt is at blackjack tables, and supposedly Ray is losing his shirt at baccarat, but won't stop playing. Well, Uncle Ray can afford it, Rachel chucked. She was so glad she decided to skip this family reunion. Ah, yes, you should see that wife of his. She changes outfits 4 times a day, and every night it's a different ball gown, a different jewelry. I don't know where she thinks she is. This is a cruise ship, not the Oscars. Auntie Belinda is just doing what she loves, Mum. She's trying to rub it in all our faces. That's what she's doing. And of course, your cousin Vivian has to ask her what she's wearing every time. And Belinda always says something. Oh, this one I bought in Toronto at Holt Revenue. Or this is a Liberace I bought on sale. It was 7,500 marked down to 3,000. Liberace. I don't think he ever designed clothes, Mum. You know, that Italian designer, the one that got shot in Miami. Oh, you mean Versace? Liberace, Versace is all the same to me. It's not like if it's not on sale at Rose Dress for Less, I don't care what the brand is. Well, I'm sure Auntie Belinda appreciates Vivian's attention. She's clearly the only one in the cruise Auntie Belinda can talk to about high fashion. Rachel took a bite from her share of the cake. You and Nick should have come. All your cousins would have enjoyed spending time with you. You know this is the first holiday Vivian's taken since Ollie was born. I would have loved to see everyone, Mum, but the dates just didn't work with my teaching schedule. I couldn't imagine Nick on a cruise ship, though. I think he'll jump overboard before the ship even left port. Ha ha, your husband only likes those private yachts. No, you got it wrong. He'd much rather rough than it be on some luxury cruise. I could see him on some sort of expedition frigate going to Antarctica or a fishing boat in Nova Scotia, but not on any kind of floating palace. A fishing boat. All those rich kids who grew up with everything just wants to live like they are poor. How is Nicky anyway? He's fine, but you know what? His grandfather had a heart attack last week. Oh, really? Is he going back to Singapore? I don't know, Mum. You know how sensitive he gets about anything having to do with his grandmother. Nick should go back. You should convince him to go back. This might be his last chance to see the old lady. Rachel's radar suddenly went off. Wait a minute. You've been talking to Nick's mum, haven't you? Carrie Chu paused for a moment too long before saying, No, we haven't spoken in ages. Don't lie to me, Mum. Only Eleanor calls Nick's grandmother the old lady. Yeah, I can't lie to you. You know me too well. Yes, Eleanor called. She called a few times now and won't leave me alone. She thinks only you can convince Nick to go home. I can't talk Nick into doing something he doesn't want to do. Did you know that Nick was supposed to inherit the house? Yes, Mum, I know. I'm the whole reason she cut him out of her will. So don't you see I'm the last person to tell him to go back. But his grandfather only has a few weeks to live. If he plays his cards right, he could still get the house. Jesus, Mum, stop parroting Eleanor Young. No, Eleanor. I'm speaking as your mother. I'm thinking of you. Think about how this house could benefit your life. Mum, we live in New York. That house has no benefit to us except as one gigantic cleaning nightmare. I'm not suggesting you should live there. You would sell it. Think of the windfall you'd have. Rachel rolled her eyes. Mum, we're already so fortunate compared to the rest of the planet. I know, but imagine how your life could change right now if Nick inherits that house. It's worth hundreds of millions, so I'm told. That's like winning the Powerball lottery. This is crazy money, life-changing money, enough money so your poor mother doesn't have to work so hard anymore. Mum, you know you have been retired years ago, but you love what you do. You've been the top property agent in Cupertino 3 years running. I know, but I just wanted you to think about what it would be like to have that kind of fortune at your fingertips. I want to see all the good things that you and Nick can do with that money, like that Chinese girl who married to that Facebook fellow that gave away billions. Think of how proud her parents must be of her. Rachel looked at Sylvia, who was leaning back in her chair precariously as she stretched to reach for the cake on the coffee table. I can't talk about this now, Mum. She was about to fall over and break her neck. Call me back. We need to. Rachel hung up on her mother just as her friend had scraped a nice bit of chocolate and coconut frosting off with a finger and comfortably returned to her usual seated position. Way to go, using me as an excuse to get off the phone with your mum. Sylvia cackled as she licked her finger clean. Rachel smiled. Sometimes I forget you can speak Mandarin. A lot better than you, banana girl. Sounds like she was in turbo nagging mode. Yeah, she was fixated on something and wouldn't let it go. If she's anything like my mom, she's going to call you back tonight and try the guilt angle. You're probably right, which is why I need to see what Nick is up to for lunch. A few hours later, Rachel and Nick were seated at their favourite window table at tea and sympathy. Nick Perry, the owner, had been by to share a funny video of Cuthbert, her bulldog, and their lunches had just been placed on the table. It was a snowy January afternoon, and the windows had fogged up inside the cosy restaurant, creating an even more inviting atmosphere for Rachel to enjoy the chicken and leek pie in front of her. This was a perfect idea. How did you know I was craving tearness for lunch? Nick asked as he tucked into his usual English bacon, avocado, and tomato sandwich. Taking advantage of his good mood, Rachel got right to the point. So I spoke to Mum a little earlier. Apparently our mothers have been talking. Oh God, not the grandchildren talk again. No, this time it was all about you. Let me guess, my mother has enlisted help to convince me to return to Singapore. Your sidekick. Nick rolled his eyes. My mother is so predictable, you know. I don't think she really cares about my grandmother dying. She's just fixated on me getting Tysero Park. It's her entire race and deter. Rachel broke the thick golden pastry crust of a chicken pie with a fork and let some of the steam escape. She took her first attentive bite on the piping hot creamy sauce before speaking again. What I've never really understood is why everyone thinks the house is supposed to go to you. What about your father or yours? Don't they have more rights to the house? Nick sighed. Ma, as you know, is an old-fashioned Chinese woman. She has always favoured her sons over her daughters. They were all supposed to marry and be taken care of by their husbands' families, while my father got Tysel Park. It's this warped mashup of archaic Chinese custom and the British rules of primogeniture. But that's so unfair, Rachel muttered. I know, but that's the way things are, and my aunts grew up always knowing they would get the sort of that short end of the stick. Mind you, each of them is still going to inherit from Amar's financial holdings, so no one's going to be hurting for cash here. So then how is it that you suddenly got to be first in line to inherit Tysero Park? Nick leaning back in his chair. Do you remember when Jacqueline Ling came to New York a couple of years ago and summoned me to lunch aboard her yacht? Oh yes, she had two Swedish blonde kidnaps you in the middle of the lecture. Rachel laughed. Yes, Jacqueline is Amar's goddaughter, and they've always been extremely close. Jacqueline revealed to me that back in the early 90s, when my father decided to move to Australia pretty much full time, it so angered my grandmother that she decided to change her will and disinherit him from Tysero Park. She skipped a generation and made me the heir to the property, but then after I married you, she supposedly changed her will again. Why do you think why do you think it currently in favour her to Tysel Park? I honestly have no idea. Maybe Eddie, maybe one of my cousins in Thailand, maybe she's going to leave it all to her beloved guava trees. The point is, Amar used her fortune to control the family. She always changed her will according to her latest whim. No one really knows what she's going to do, and at this point, I've stopped caring. Rachel looked Nick straight in the face. Here's the thing, I know that you don't care what happens to your grandmother's fortune, but you can't pretend that you don't still care for her, and that's the only reason why I think you should go back now. Nick stared out of her fogged window for a moment, avoiding her eyes. I don't know, I think part of me is still so angry at her for how she treated you. Nick, please don't hold on to this because of me. I forgave your grandmother long ago. Nick looked at her skeptically. Rachel put her hands on his. I realized it was a waste of time to be mad at her because she never really got to know me. She never gave me a chance. I was the girl who came out of her left field and stole her grandson's heart. But the more time passes, I find myself actually feeling grateful towards her now. Grateful. Think about it, Nick. If your grandmother hadn't been so resistant to us being together, if she hadn't supported your mother in all her crazy shenanigans, I would never have found my real father. I would have never met Carlton. Can you imagine what my life would be like if I hadn't met them? Nick softened for a moment at the mention of Rachel's half-brother. Well, I can imagine what Carlton's life would be like if he'd never met you. He probably would have Rector doesn't more sports cars by now. Oh God, don't even say that. The point I'm trying to make is I think you need to find some way to forgive your grandmother because it's clearly an issue for you and it's going to keep eating you up inside if you don't. Remember that the radio host Delilah always says forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves. If you think you're able to let things go without ever seeing her again, more power to you. I'm not going to force you to get on a plane, but I think you need to see her in person. And I'm guessing she probably really wants to see you too, but like you, she's too damn brown to admit it. Nick looked down at his cup of tea. The saucer was emblazoned with an image of Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth II, and seeing the gold patterning at the edge of the porcelain suddenly took her back to a memory of Tysero Park, of sitting in the ornate 18th century French pavilion overlooking the lotus pond with his grandmother when he was 6 years old, being taught how to properly pour a cup of tea for a lady. He could remember how heavy the Loquan Celadon teapot felt in his hands as he carefully lifted it towards the teacup. If the butler doesn't notice that her cup needs to be refilled, you must do it for her, but never lift the lid cup away from the saucer when pouring, and be sure the spout is turned away from her. His grandmother had instructed. Emerging from the memory, Nick said, "We can't both take off for Singapore at the beginning of the semester. I wasn't saying we should both go. I think this is a trip you should make on your own. You're on sabbatical right now, and we both know you haven't made much progress on the book you're going to write." Nick swept his tousled hair off his forehead with both hands. With a sigh, everything's so perfect in our life right now. Do you really want me to go back to Singapore and open another Pandora's box? Rachel shook her head in exasperation. Look, Nick, look around you. The box has been opened. It's been smashed open, gaping at you for the last 4 hours. You need to go back and repair the box before it's too late. Chapter 8. Bombay, India. His nails were like onyx. They were perfectly formed and slightly buffed, so that there was just a hint of sheen. Su Yi had never before seen such beautiful manicured nails on a man, and couldn't help but stare at his fingers, counted out rupees for the woman manning a cart piled high with brightly coloured candles and strange wax figures, some in the shape of babies, some in the shape of houses, and others resembling arms and legs. What are these wax sculptures for? Su Yi asked. People burn them as favours, in the hopes that their prayers will be answered. The babies are for people hoping for a child. The house are for those that want a new home, and the sick choose a body part that correspond to the ailment. So if you're looking to heal a broken arm, this is one you get, he said, holding up a wax form of an arm with a clenched fist. I bought 2 candles in the power red and blue. They were the closest colours I could find to represent the British flag. You must tell me what to do, she said hesitant. It's very simple. We must place them in the shrine, light them, and say a little prayer. As they walked up the hill with the lovely views of the Arabian Sea, Su Yi glanced at the imposing Gothic facade of Mount Mary Church. Are you sure they'll allow me to enter? I'm not Catholic. Of course, I'm not Catholic either, but everyone is welcome. If anyone asks us what we're doing, we can tell them that we're lighting candles for Singapore. Everyone is aware that what's happening there right now. Stretching out his arms, he gestured gallantly at the arched front doors. Su Yi stepped into the church sanctuary, feeling self-conscious as her high-heeled shoes echoed against the black and white marble floor. It was the first time inside a Catholic church, and she stared in fascination at the vibrant frescoes on the walls and the words painted in gold script against the majestic arch. All generations shall call me blessed. The main altar reminded her of those in Chinese temples, except that instead of a statue of Buddha, there was a beautiful small wooden one of the Virgin Mary dressed in gold blue robes, holding an even smaller wooden baby Jesus. I didn't know there were so many Catholics in India, she whispered to him, noticing the worshippers filling up the first 4 to 5 rows of pews, some kneeling in silent prayer. Bombay was a Portuguese colony during the 16th century, and they converted many Indians. This whole area, Bandra, is the main Catholic neighbourhood. Su Yi was impressed. You've only been here a few months, but you've come to know the city rather well, haven't you? I like to explore different areas. Mostly I wander around the city out of sheer boredom. Has life been that boring? Before you arrived, everything was boring, he said, gazing at her face intently. Su Yi lowered her eyes, feeling her face begin to flush. They walked along the transept until they arrived at a side chapel where hundreds of burning candles flickered. He handed her the red candle and gently guided her hand as she placed his into a flame. The whole ritual seemed strangely romantic there. Now just find an empty slot for your candle anywhere you like, he said in a hushed voice. She placed hers on the lowest rack, next to the one that was almost burnt out. As Suyi watched the flame begin to brighten, she thought of the island she had been forced to flee. She still wished she could have defied her father and stayed on. She knew she would be feeling grateful rather than angry at her father, especially in light of the latest news. The Jurong Kranji defense lines had finally been breached yesterday morning, and invading Japanese soldiers were probably all over Bukit Timah now, swarming her neighborhood. As they made their way to the city center, she wondered what was happening at Tysdale Park, if it had sustained any bomb damage, or whether the troops had discovered and pillaged the place. Suyi closed her eyes and chanted a little prayer for everyone who remained at Tysdale Park, and for her cousins and aunties and uncles and her friends, everyone who couldn't get off the island in time. When she opened her eyes, James was standing right in front of her, so close she could feel his warm breath. "My goodness, you startled me," she gasped. "Do you wish to confess?" he said, leading her towards a wooden booth. "I'm not sure. Should I?" Suyi asked, her heart beginning to race. She wasn't sure she wanted to go into the dark box. "I think it's time." He opened the lattice work screen door for her. She stepped inside the confession booth hesitantly, surprised how comfortable the cushion on the seat was. As she sat down, it was plush velvet, and it felt all of a sudden like she was seated in the Hispano Susan that her father had given her to for her 16th birthday. Every time she was driven into town, clusters of people would run after the car in excitement. The Anglos would look in curiously, wondering which dignitary was inside the grand automobile, and she loved seeing her stunned expression when they realized it was a Chinese girl. Children would try to grab onto the car, while young suitors would attempt to throw roses through the windows in the hopes of winning her attention. The window to the convention booth slid open, and she could see that James was sitting on the other side, playing at being the priest. "Tell me, child, have you sinned?" he asked. She didn't want to say anything, but suddenly she felt her lip moving uncontrollably. "Yes, I have. I can't hear. I have sinned against you," against the words just pouring out, even as she tried to keep her mouth closed. "Speak up, dear. Can you hear me?" "Of course I can hear you. You're sitting 1 foot away from me," Suyi said, annoyed as a bright flash of light coming through the lattice work screen suddenly glared into her eyes. "Can you hear me?" The voice sounded garbled as it moved from English into Hokkien. Suddenly it was terribly bright, and she was no longer in the confession booth of Mount Mary in Bombay. She was in a hospital room, and her cardiologist was staring down at her. "Mrs. Young, can you hear me?" "Yes," she murmured weakly. Good. Professor Un said, Do you know where you are?" "Hospital." "Yes, you're at Mount Elizabeth. You had a cardiac episode, but we managed to stabilize you, and I'm very happy with the progress you're making. Do you feel any pain?" "Not really." "Good. You shouldn't. We have you on a constant dose of hydrocodone, so you should not have to feel any discomfort at all. Now I'm going to send Felicity in. She's very eager to see you." Felicity entered and tiptoed rather awkwardly to her mother's bedside. "Oh, Mummy, you're finally awake. They've had you just sedated for the past 2 days so that your heart could rest. How are you feeling? You gave us quite a scare." "Where are Madry and Matravidi?" "Oh, your ladies' maids are right outside. They've been with you at all this time, but you haven't known it. Francis only allows one of us in at a time. I'm very thirsty." Yes. It's that medication you have on and the oxygen tube in your nose. It really dries out your throat. Let's get you some water." Felicity looked around and found a water jug on a side table. I wonder if this is filtered or from the tap. Oh dear, they only have plastic cups. Do you mind? I'll have some proper glasses brought up as soon as possible. I don't understand why there are only plastic cups in here. I don't know if you can tell, but you are in the royal suite built for the Brunei royals. We had it specially arranged for you, but dear me, they need proper cups. I don't care, Suyi said impatiently. Felicity poured some water into the cup and brought it over to her mother. She held the cup up to Mother's lips and began to tilt it forward, noticing that her hands were beginning to shake. "Oh, silly me. We need a straw. We wouldn't want to spill any of this on you." Suyi let her start. Even in her delirious state, Suyi noticed that her eldest daughter always brought along a certain frenetic energy. She was so eager to please, but in a cloying, obstinate way that Suyi found so irritating. She had been like this even as a child. Where did she get it from? Felicity found a cluster of straws on the side table and hastily jabbed one into the cup. "Here, that's much better." As she placed the straw up her mother's lips, she glanced at the heart monitor and saw the numbers slowly begin to rise. 95, 105, 110. She knew she was agitating her mother, and her hands started shaking again. A few drops of water splashed into her mother's chin. Hold still, Sue, he hissed. Felicity grasped the cup tightly, suddenly feeling like this. She was 10 years old again, perched on the ottoman in her mother's bedroom as one of the Thai maids arranged her hair into intricate braid. She would shift a little and her mother would groan in annoyance. Hold still, Siri is doing very delicate work here, and if you only make one false move, you're going to mess it all up. Do you want to be the only girl at Countess Mountbatten's tea party with bad hair? Everyone will be looking at you because you're my daughter. Do you want to disgrace me by looking unkempt? Felicity could feel the vein in her neck beginning to throb at the memory. Where were her blood pressure pills? She couldn't deal with Mummy like this. She hated even seeing her like this, dressed in a hospital gown with the hair out of place. Mummy must never look unkempt. Now that she was conscious, they must send her over her own clothes and have Simon set up her hair properly. And some jewelry. Where was the jade amulet she always wore against her chest? She stared at the heart monitor anxiously. 112, 115, 120. Oh dear, oh dear. She didn't want to be responsible for causing another heart attack. She needed to leave the room now. You know, Astrid's been dying to see you. Felicity Bird blurted out. Appalled at her own choice of words, she pulled the cup away from her mother and fled out the door. A few moments later, Astrid entered. The bright light from the doorway silhouetted her and made her glow like an angel. Su Yi smiled at her. Her favourite granddaughter always looked so calm and collected, no matter the occasion. Today she was wearing a pale lilac dress with a low-waisted sash and delicate knife pleats all along the skirt. Her long hair was gathered with a loose bun at the nape of her neck, and her delicate locks on the side framed her face like Botticelli's Venus. How wonderful you look, Su Yi said in Cantonese, the dialect she preferred to use with most of her grandchildren. Don't you recognise the dress? It's one of your periods from the 1920s, Astrid said, sitting in the chair beside her bed and taking her hand. Yes, of course, it was my mother's, actually. I thought it was terribly old-fashioned by the time she gave it to me, but it looks perfect on you. I wish I could have met Grandmama. You would have appreciated her. She was very beautiful like you. She always told me that it was unfortunate that I took after my father. But, Ma, you're beautiful. Weren't you the leading debutante of your day? I wasn't ugly, but I didn't come close to my mother in looks. My older brother looked more like her. Su Yi sighed for a moment. If only you could have met him. Great Uncle Alexander. I always call him by his Chinese name. Archie. He was so strikingly handsome and so kind. You've always said that. He died much too young. Cholera, wasn't it? Su Yi paused for a moment before saying yes, there was an epidemic in Batava where father had sent him to manage our business. You know, things would have been so different for all of us. Had he lived, what do you mean? He wouldn't have behaved like Alfred for one thing. Asher wasn't sure that what her grandmother meant, but she didn't wish to upset her by prodding her any further. Great Uncle Alfred is coming home, you know. He's due in on Thursday. Auntie Kat and Auntie Alex are on their way also. Why is everyone coming down to the thing of dying? Oh no. Everyone just wants to see you. Astrid laughed lightly. Well, if that's the case, I want to be at home. Please tell Frances that I want to go home today. I don't think you can go home just yet, Emma. You need to get a bit better first. Nonsense. Where is Frances now? Astrid pushed the button beside the bed. Within a few moments, Frances arrived in the room, accompanied by his usual entourage of nurses. Is everything okay? He asked, looking at a little bit flustered. He always got flustered around her. Astrid noticed a spot of chili sauce on the edge of his mouth and tried to ignore it. She addressed him in English. My grandma wishes to be discharged. Professor Un leaned towards his patient, spoke in Hokkien. Mrs. Young, we cannot allow you to go home yet. You need to get stronger first. I feel fine. Well, we want you to feel even better than we before we release you. Astrid cut in. Professor Un, I think my grandma would be so much more comfortable at home. Couldn't we just have things set up for her at Tysdell Park? It's not that simple. Stepping outside with me for a moment, will you? The doctor said a little uneasily. Astrid followed him out of the room, slightly annoyed by the ungracious way he had handled her. Now, of course, her grandmother would know they were discussing her condition. Professor Un found himself staring at Astrid. This woman was so blindingly pretty. It made him nervous just to be around her. He felt like he could lose control in a moment and say something inappropriate. Astrid, I must be blunt with you. Your grandma's condition extremely touch and go at the moment. There's been a tremendous amount of scarring on the heart and her her injection fraction is up to 27%. I know it looks like she's getting better, but you need to know that we are making modern rudimentary efforts to keep her alive. All these machines she's tied up to, she needs them, and she requires non-stop care. How long does she really have? Hard to say, but it's a matter of weeks. Her heart muscle is irreparably damaged, and her condition is worsening by the day. She could go any moment, really. I should let out a long exhale. Well, it's even more essential that we get her home then. I know my grandmother would not want to spend her last days here. Why can't we selectively move all the machines? Let's set up a medical suite just like this one for her at home. We can have you and the rest of the medical team stationed there. Something like that has never been done before. To set up a whole mobile cardiac intensive care unit in a private home with all the equipment we would need and round-the-clock doctors and nurses is a huge undertaking and would be extremely cost prohibitive. Astra cocked her head and giving him a suddenly ever-skating look that said, "Really, do we need to go there, Professor? And I can speak for my entire family. The cost is not an issue. Let's just make it happen, shall we?" "Okay, I'll work on that," Professor Lynn replied, his face flushing. Astrid and re-entered the royal suite, and Suyi smiled at her. "All taken care of, Amma. They will move you home as soon as possible. They just have to set up the new equipment for you first. Thank you. You're much more efficient than your mother." "Oh, don't let her hear you say that anyway. You shouldn't be talking so much. You should rest." "Oh, I feel like I've rested enough. Before I woke up, I had a dream about your grandfather. Yeah. Do you remember about Do you dream about Aye often?" "Rarely, but this dream was very strange. Part of it felt so real because it was a memory of something that really happened during the war when I was being evacuated to Bombay." "Aye, wasn't it Bombay, was he?" But Aye wasn't in Bombay, was he? "Didn't you only meet him when you returned to Singapore?" "Yes, when I went home." Suyi closed her eyes and was silent for a few moments, and Astrid thought she had drifted back to sleep. Suddenly she opened her eyes and said, "I need you to help me." Astrid sat up in a chair. "Yes, of course. What do you want me to do?" "There are some things you must do for me. Very important things." Thanks for listening.